Miatta, you are an economist. You work for the New Economics Foundation. Can you think, before, I'm sure you will take issue with some of what Mark's said, but before you do, can you think of a tangible benefit of Brexit?
It's hard to at this point in time, not least because I think all the economic analysis seems to suggest that in the short to medium term, Brexit, whatever version of Brexit, will have an impact on the economy. So in the long term, yes, there might be some upsides, but it's quite hard on the basis of the evidence that we have at the moment for us to know what that upside is going to look like. But what we definitely do know is if we go down a no-deal route, the knock and the hit will be pretty severe, and that's communities up and down the country.
Do we know that, or do we believe that?
No, so in the end, all economists can do is look at the evidence and the information that we have and make a best guess and a prediction.
But economists are so often wrong, aren't they?
They are, but, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can only look at the evidence. We can look at, where consumer confidence is, where business confidence is, where investment is likely to be, and we can make a judgment. And if you have a big disruption, particularly if it's a no-deal Brexit, which will be hugely disruptive, no matter what anyone says, it is going to have a hit. So it's quite hard in that context to think about the sort of sunny uplands because the pain is going to be short and immediate. And I mean, to sort of Mark's point, you say half of our laws are made by the EU. I mean, that's a fallacy. In the end, the laws that matter are made by this government, are made by our sovereign parliament. And, in the end, that referendum, I think, for many people was a rejection of the status quo. I think many people were saying they wanted to change. It was a reaction to the fact that living standards have been squeezed and communities have been hammered. And actually, that's all within the purview of our government. They can take action now to deal with that. And I think that's the big frustration. And, if we're trying to get to sovereignty, but at the same time we're trashing Parliament, which is fundamentally our sovereign body in all of this, you kind of wonder what is the price of it.
If we leave with no deal, there's obviously going to be a lot of bad blood between the two sides, regardless of who's to blame or whatever. That is going to make a free trade deal with the EU that much more difficult, is it not?
It is. I mean, so the whole rhetoric around no deal is just complete fantasy, lunacy. It's ridiculous. And if you decide to crash out, it makes it incredibly hard to negotiate that deal. But, the sort of chat that we crash out and Brexit is done is nonsense, because you crash out and the very next day you need to knock on the door of the EU and say, oh, by the way, we've got to deal with citizens, we've got to deal with our legal obligations, we've got to deal with our financial obligations before we can even start talking about a new trade deal. So this is like the beginning of the process. And I think if our politicians were being...
The beginning? We've had 3 years.
Well, I know. And that's the tragedy. We have had 3 years.
But
and
you
we
didn't
are
vote
at
for
the
a deal,
beginning.
Mark. Nor did I.
Right? We're at the beginning of this thing.